Bet that is him.
Hello,
Hey, Lee, is that you?
it's me.
Okay, great. All right. I don't see Candace on my screen yet.
I
So do anybody else see her? I don't want to start if she's trying to connect or popping on.
She is not in the waiting room right now.
Okay. Okay. Well, it is just a minute or two, I think, past 1. So Jean, if you want to go ahead and get started,
Okay.
we can roll.
All right. I need to cough first. Excuse me. Okay. Hello, I'm Jean Cook, Chair of the Mississippi Charter School Authorizer Board. This regularly scheduled meeting of the MCSAB is being held today, Monday, June 12th, 2023, at 1 p.m. via Zoom teleconference means pursuant to Mississippi Code annotated 25415. The notice of this meeting, which included the date, time, place, and purpose of the meeting and identified the virtual attendance available to the public, has been posted. An audio recording is being made of this meeting, and minutes of this meeting, excuse me, will be recorded. We'll call a meeting to order at 1:03 p.m. on Monday, June 12, 2023. Now we'll move on to the establishment of a quorum. As I call the names of the board members, please state the location of your presence for this meeting. I'm Jean Cook. I'm present in Jackson, Mississippi. Lee Durrett.
Tupelo, Mississippi.
Thank you. Don Hinton.
I'm here in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Thank you. Kimberly Remack. I see Kimberly. I just don't hear you. Looks like she's connecting.
Okay.
Okay. Kimberly Remack, I'm doing the roll call. Can you state your location? I believe you're still muted.
Can you hear me now, Jean?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. I had a little problem with the update on my computer, so I had to go to my iPad. I'm Kimberly Remack, and I'm in Olive Branch.
Thank you. Candace Robbins. I don't see her. Marcy Scoggins.
I'm present in Madison, Mississippi.
Thank you. And Jennifer Whittier. Jennifer Whittier, can you unmute and state your location?
Present in Brookhaven, Mississippi.
Thank you. A quorum is present for conducting a meeting. I'll start by reading the mission of the Charter Authorizer Board. The mission of the Charter School Authorizer Board is to authorize high-quality charter schools, particularly schools designed to expand opportunities for underserved students. Now I will entertain a motion to approve today's agenda, and please identify yourself for the record.
This is Kimberly Remack from Olive Branch. I make a motion to approve today's agenda.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Don Hinton.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. The next we'll move on to the approval of the minutes of the April 10th, 2023 regularly scheduled monthly meeting. And board members, you've received a copy of the meeting minutes, and I will now entertain a motion for approval.
Jennifer Whittier, I make a motion we approve those minutes.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Marcy Scoggins, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Now we will move on to the approval of the minutes of the April 17th, 2023 special called meeting. You've received a copy of those minutes as well, and I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Kimberly Remack.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, we'll move on to the chair report, and I don't have a report today, so we'll move on to the executive director report.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Jean. Welcome to everybody. I see we have a lot of guests today, so we appreciate you being with us this afternoon, and it's good to see all of you. Your faces, or most of your faces. Some of you are still behind your names. Anyway, it's great to see everyone and have an opportunity to share with you now what's been happening with us and what we've been up to this past couple of months since we last met. One thing before I get started, I would draw to your attention, as always, the newsletter that's included in your packet. You should have two newsletters available, and then some articles there. So I do encourage you to read those articles. Some of you may have seen the Fordham article already, but the second reference is to the Credo report that just came out this week on charter schools and their efficacy with respect to teaching our kiddos. So both, and then the NACSA, it's actually a comment by the president of NACSA that you'll see linked in as well, and in response to the Credo study that was just released. So the call for quality schools then is well underway, and our external partners are now conducting the threshold quality review of 2 completed applications. Both of these proposals from these 2 schools are for schools in the Delta. So one is proposed for the high school, or for a high school for Clarksdale Collegiate, and then one is Level Up Learning, and the Level Up Learning Center would be in Greenville, should the board approve that in September. It has been another full month for us. We've been diligently working on a variety of different projects. Jordan and I in particular have been working really hard with our epicenter submissions to clean up what we have in terms of reporting requirements and the descriptions and instructions that are included in those requirements. So we've added a few new requirements for our schools in order to capture some information that's relative to the performance framework and relative to the governing structure and the governing work that their board does. So a few more of those items. And Jordan, do you have anything to say that you want to add to Epicenter? She's been doing a lot of training and got the copy forward completed. So do you have anything, Jordan?
Sure. I would just say that Epicenter support team is phenomenal. They're so helpful when we get ready to work on the copy forward. So we've really felt supported through that process. That's taken care of for the upcoming school year. And we will have some updates for our school leaders in the back to school meeting.
That's right. All right. Thank you. Next on my report, just a note to the amount of time and research that has been involved on 2 projects in particular for us. One is the expansion process, and 2 is the merger. So you recall that the AG opined that it was okay for us to develop our own rules and procedures around an expansion. And you will recall that you all directed me to develop an expansion process. And I misspoke there. That would have been a merger process with the AG's opinion. So 2 really big items that will come before you in the next month or so for approval. And in the interim, we will have a performance and accountability meeting where that group of committee members will be able to take a close look at the expansion policy or practice that we're going to put out for APA once board approves it. The legislative committee did meet this past month with Capital Resources. And Kimberly, do you want to wait until the committee reports, or do you want to just pop in now since I mentioned that?
I think it's best just to wait for the committee reports.
Okay, perfect. A couple of other things on our end. We have 2 outstanding surveys right now for feedback. We have one to get feedback on the call for quality schools and the technical assistance that was provided. And then we have another survey out to the school leaders and governing board members who attended the financial training that we had this past week. We have been busy with a variety of things. Like I said earlier, a lot going on from the work on the application cycle through NACSA and the indicators of distress and the A game. So there's a lot happening and a lot of heavy lifting going on at the authorizer. So I will end my comments there. And then if anybody has a question, I'm happy to expound on anything that you need.
Are there any questions? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the report. Now we'll move on to the financial report, and Ms. Denise DeRosset will present the financial report.
To unmute myself. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Don't have a whole lot to report for our FY23 expenditures. The expenditures these last 2 months have been very standard. Just about everything that we normally process, we've processed. The only thing I really want to point out is that there hasn't been any CSP expenditures except for the administrative work that Lisa does, and we have charged her salary for the last time to that grant. And then there was one small payment for technical assistance. And that's the only thing that's been paid under the CSP. I did mention that we are no longer going to be charging Dr. Carmacheria's salary to the CSP. And that will start with this month. And that's based on the administrative percentage that's allowable under the grant. And the fact that the schools haven't really drawn down any money, our percentage would be higher if we were still using their funds for Lisa's salary. And that's all I have for 23, unless y'all have a question. And then I do have a budget that we've developed together with Dr. Carmacheria for the FY24 budget year, if y'all want to go over that.
So will we go over when we get to the new business? Is that when we're going to go over the budget, or is this something?
Yes, Jean, we'll vote on it during the
Okay,
time.
all right.
But we could discuss it if you, since Denise has that under her report, and if the board had any questions about it or comments or concerns or anything, we could certainly do that now or wait to new business.
Okay, well, since Denise has the floor, do any board members have any questions about the proposed budget for 24?
You want me just to highlight a couple of things?
Sure.
That'd
That'd be great.
So in FY24, we have a much larger budget than we did in 23. That was because of the work that was done at the legislature. Dr. Carmacheria did a great job trying to get the funding increased, and our budget is now 1.4 million according to our appropriation. In keeping with what the board normally does, we have not gone ahead and said that we are going to build a budget for the board itself based on the appropriation, but we're only using about 75% of the appropriation at this point in time. We've done that typically, and as the year has progressed, then if we needed additional funds, we would come back to the board for that budget authority. But you will notice that we have an increase in our salaries. That's a twofold reason. Part of that's, again, because we don't have CSP funds in 24 for salaries. And the other is there's, with permission granted, to give us another staff position as needed during that year. We've kept our travel the same throughout the year. It looks like we've had a huge increase in our contractual expenses when you look at the 23 budget to the 24 budget. However, if you look at what the CSP budget was for contractual and the technical assistance, we're really only increasing the entire agency's budget by about 11,000 because we're moving money from the CSP into the general operating budget. And then we've increased our computer equipment line item slightly because of the anticipation of hiring somebody new. And then the only thing that is shown in the CSP for FY24 is the 2 schools that still have outstanding claims. And that's the assumption that there will be no claims made in June. The schools have until, I think, the 15th to submit claims under FY23. And since nothing has come forward, we're just anticipating the full amount will be moved into the 24 year. That's it in a nutshell.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any questions for Denise about the budget or her report? Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for the report, Denise. Now we'll move on to committee reports. Looks like we have 2. And Ms. Whittier will provide a report on behalf of the Performance and Accountability Committee first. Ms. Whittier?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. You all will recall that a couple of months ago, the board charged the executive director with developing an expansion process that would create a pathway for schools seeking significant expansion or a change in their school model. Chair Cook and I have had an opportunity to review the initial draft along with the resources and references used to develop that process. The Performance and Accountability Committee will meet on June 28th at 1 p.m. via Zoom to review and discuss the application. At the July board meeting, the full board will receive the document for consideration and approval to begin the APA process. And that's all I have.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions about that report? Okay. Now we'll move on to our next report from the Legislative Committee, and Mrs. Remack will provide that report. Just be sure to unmute yourself.
Jean, can you hear me?
Yes.
We can hear now.
Yep.
I met with our legislative body there and with Dr. Carmachire and other members of the legislative committee. And I think we're going to give you a report at a later time, but there were no significant new items that we are working on at this time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, looks like we don't have discussion items, we just have new business items, so we'll move on to those. And the first is to consider approval of the FY24 budget, and I will entertain a motion for approval of the FY24 budget. Please identify yourself for the record.
So moved, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Marcy Scoggins.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm sorry, I'm a little late.
Okay.
A little technical problem.
Sorry.
But that was an aye.
Aye, okay. All right, and any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. I guess I should listen for how many ayes or nays I need to hear. Okay, next we'll move on to an action item to consider approval of the Epicenter contract renewal. Dr. Carmacharia, is there anything you need us to know about this?
I don't think so. This is just a standard yearly renewal for the platform that we use for the schools to submit their documentation into during pre-opening and during their operating years. And we use it for our application cycle. So it's just an online platform where we capture and hold reports from the schools and information that either impacts their potential for opening, pre-opening, or impacts their operations. And ultimately, many of those reports go into the performance framework. So it's, again, an annual renewal of a contract to hold that platform for us.
Okay, thanks. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the Epicenter contract renewal.
So
moved,
moved.
Don Hinton.
Okay, I had two people, Don and Kimberly. I don't know who was first.
Let Kimberly do it and I'll be the second.
Okay, so Kimberly made the motion and I'll hear a second now.
Second.
No, okay, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, next item C is to consider approval of Cornerstone Consulting contract renewal.
Let me
Dr.
see.
Kay? Yeah,
Yeah, yes, thank you. Let me see if Denise can pop off of that while the board.
Okay.
So
okay.
she's going to
Is
step
it
out.
easier to go into another room or for Jordan to take me out?
She can take you out.
Okay.
Not literally. That sounded like a mafia response. She can
Right.
take you out. Yeah. So
Okay.
Denise is in the waiting room now. So this is again an annual contract renewal with Cornerstone, and you will see in the contract that Denise does more than just our budget. She's responsible for our human resources connection to PERS, you name it. She's responsible for that. So I would ask the board to consider that annual approval.
Okay. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve Cornerstone Consulting contract renewal.
So moved. Jennifer Whittier.
Okay, thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Lee Durrett.
Okay, I heard Lee Durrett there. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, I know Sydney's gonna come back.
She should.
Okay, all right. All right, next we'll move on to item D, is to consider approval of the revised charter contract, and Amy's going to give a report on this item.
Thank you, Jean. I am planning to go through all of the changes to the charter contract template and explain the rationale for each change. Bear with me, it's just going to take me a minute. It's not a whole lot, but anyway. All right, so in section 2.6.3, we added the language from the authorizer to clarify who approves the amendment and for continuity with other sections of the contract. In section 2.8.1, we added the requirement that the school calendar shall be submitted to the authorizer in accordance with the timelines and procedures established by the authorizer to match current practices and for continuity with other sections of the contract. In section 2.9.1, we deleted the evaluation of the schools based on compliance with their student handbook to match current practices and as a benefit to the schools. In section 2.10.1, we added the requirement that the school's code of conduct and discipline management plan be submitted to the authorizer in accordance with the timelines and procedures established by the authorizer. And that again was to match current practices and for continuity with other sections of the contract. I'm going too fast for you, Jordan.
Well, just a little bit. I had to nudge her to get that pulled up. So now I think everybody can see what you're talking about. I think we're good.
Sorry about that. Okay. Next one is section 3.5.7. And we actually added this section regarding the disposition of excess funds or equipment when schools merge to address the issue of what happens to those funds and equipment when the schools merge. In anticipation of a new merger policy, which is forthcoming, and as a benefit to the schools who plan to merge. I also would note that the last sentence says, this provision does not create a pathway for state or federal funds or equipment purchased with state or federal funds to be disposed of in any other way than in accordance with our Charter School Act as amended and the charter contract. So it's given schools the ability to decide how their funds and their equipment may be used, but if they have to dispose of it in the way that is legal in accordance with the statute. The next one is section 5.1.8. And in this section, we changed the word will to the word may. And that gives the authorizer discretion as to whether to initiate an intervention via the intervention ladder when a school earns less than a meets or exceeds designation on the performance framework. This was done in order to give the authorizer discretion in these situations and also to benefit the schools. The next one is section 7.11.1. This is a non-substantive change. The language here was contractor and customer, and it should have been charter operator and authorizer, so we made that change. The next one is in Exhibit D. We added space in the table of Exhibit D for for the grades 9 through 12 in anticipation of hopefully having a high school serving children in Mississippi in the near future. You'll also see that extended table in the contract amendment form, which we'll talk about here in a minute. For Exhibit G, there were 2 changes made in Exhibit G. And the first one is we clarified that the chart of accounts and grant codes are the only portions of the MDE financial accounting handbook that the schools are required to use. This change was made for clarity and to match current practices and as a benefit to the schools. The second change we made was that we eliminated the requirement that a preliminary budget be submitted to the authorizer by June 1st. This change was made to benefit the schools. The next change is in Exhibit J. And we amended the contract amendment request form to make it more user-friendly for clarity and in anticipation of the new expansion and merger policies that are forthcoming. So if you'll just scroll through that, Jordan, that would be great. That whole form there is new. Should the board approve the new contract template that we just went through, staff will notify all the schools of these non-material changes by complying the terms of the charter contract in section 7.14.4 of the newest charter contract. That language is in 6.14.4 of the older charter contracts. And this notification will in effect make each charter school subject to the newest contract template, but will not require the schools to sign a new contract if they don't have this new form. I also would like to note that in some of these amendments, we have referred to required submissions to the authorizer of the school's policies and procedures and other documents. And those submissions are only for the MCSAB to ensure that schools have these policies, procedures, and documents, not to ensure compliance with state or federal law. The responsibility to ensure compliance with state and federal law lies with the school's governing boards. And unless anybody has any questions, I'll turn it back over to Jean.
I have a couple of questions. May I?
Yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to clarify with Amy, something that you mentioned, that all of the schools will be subject to the new contract, even if they don't have this version, should the board approve it. So can you expound on that just a little bit for the public so that they understand the authority that we have and how we'll communicate with the schools to ensure that they know what's in this new contract?
Yes. There is a provision within each charter contract that every school has signed that basically says the authorizer board may notify them of non-material changes, and that those non-material changes would go into effect, which means that the schools would need to comply with those. And the notice is just and I guess just what we're planning to do is to, make sure that every change is written out and that we send notice to the schools so that they know that it is changed, and also to comply with the terms of the contract.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I have one just to clarify. I think what I heard you say throughout was it didn't sound like there was anything in any of these changes that was going to create something new or in a new piece of work that the schools had to do, or something, a new task or a new assignment. It may have just been
correct.
Okay.
That is correct. We actually we did our best to take out what we didn't need.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, thank you for that review. I will now entertain a motion to approve the revised charter contract.
So moved, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Kimberly Remack.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, and we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Our next item E is to consider approval of Clarksdale Collegiate Charter Contract. Is Dr. Carmacharia, is anything you want to say about this one?
This is standard for us
Okay.
after we go through the renewal process for these three schools in particular, that this is the new charter contract that they will have going forward.
Okay.
After approval.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, I will entertain a motion to approve Clarksdale's contract.
So moved, Lee Durrett.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second, Kimberly Remak.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. All right, next item F is to consider approval of Midtown Public Charter Contract, and I'll entertain a motion to approve Midtown's contract.
So moved, Jennifer Whittier.
Thank you. Can I hear a second?
Second, Don Hinton.
Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. Next, we will consider approval of Smilo Collegiate Charter Contract, and I'll entertain a motion to approve Smilo Collegiate's contract.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second,
Second.
Marcy Scoggins.
Okay. Any discussion? And we'll vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right, the last item is an information item on Sonic Wall Security Services renewal. It looks like some info is coming up on that.
Jordan is pulling that up for us. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Mhm.
Okay, I'll just speak to this real quickly if I might. This is just an annual renewal. And this is our Sonic Wall. It's our internet service provider that helps keep the bad stuff out. So it is just something that's a filter of sorts and helps us with our internet, I guess, connectivity as well. Jordan, do you want to speak to that at all? It's just-
Well, yeah, it's our network security services and it's an annual renewal for the software. We're not connected to the state network, so this protects our agency and our connectivity.
It's really inexpensive to do this. So, and we have to have it. So,
So we don't have to vote on this, you're just letting us know.
no, it's just,
that if I-
just an
Yeah,
information item. That's right. It was
Okay.
less than $1,000. So, we just purchase it annually and then go from there.
okay. All right, any questions about this item? Okay. All right, I don't believe we have any executive session items. And so I'll move on to announce our next meeting. Is the next regularly scheduled meeting will be on July 10th, 2023 at 1 p.m. at the office, we hope, 239 North
Yes.
Lamar Street, Suite, yes, okay, 207, Jackson, Mississippi, 39201. And now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Jennifer Whittier.
Okay, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone. That concludes our meeting today. We're
All right.
adjourned.
Thanks. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, thank you. Bye.